By the way, Matt Ritson had a super chat to us yesterday. Matt, I had it copied and pasted, and then I just blanked out and did not thank you for that. We appreciate it. He had a note about the Hawaii AD getting fired for poor performances at jobs or other jobs, and so I'm sorry that I did not read that and recognize you and acknowledge that. Thank you so much for the super chat yesterday during the show.
The Hawaii AD will get another job.
You hear about the NIL, the guy who's a big donor for NIL saying he might pull all his money?
He'll get another job. But it's – look, of all the AD jobs that I could lose in my life, I think I would take that one the hardest.
Yeah, I mean, the AD lost his job after a year and a half. There's a new president, and the guy – the top booster said he is pulling all of his NIL funds. So that is the story, and it's actually very interesting. So, to the subscriber, to the donator there, whose name slipped me just now, but we really appreciate it. Sorry we didn't get to that, and we'll try to be better about getting to super chats because we know those aren't just willy-nilly, just things that you just send for fun all the time. So,
yep, it's extra. Yeah. We appreciate it.
I do, honestly, because if I was – look, and no offense to these schools, but, if you're the AD, at Iowa, oh, bum, I have to move out of Iowa City. If they're like, hey, you need to leave Honolulu, I'd be like, the F I do.
Yeah. Where can I get a food truck or something?
Yeah. You'll pry me out of this office over with my cold dead hands.
Scotty B, S. Michael DeHart, the old barn cat, Kim, Coulter, Xavier Wolf, Paxton, Shorty, Chris, Muncie, Arbuck, and who else have I not hit? Clint and Paula, thank you all. Dustin for being a part of the Super Chat already early today. So here's what happened late in the game last night in a game that went double overtime. Baylor and St. John's, Scott Drew, who will be a part of the Hall of Fame, against Rick Pitino, who is a part of the Hall of Fame. St. John's is up 2. They're at the free throw line, and here's how this game ended.
Ejiofor is second. Off the front rim. Omier has it with 2. Roach for the win. It's good!
Oh, man. Can you believe that? Neither one of these teams could shoot free throws last night. It set up a win for Baylor in the Bahamas. They'll play Tennessee tonight against St. John's. Here is where this was at one point, with St. John's led at one point by 18. They led by 6 or 5 with 9 seconds left in the game. That looks like a bad, massive heart attack or a really bad time on Wall Street. Up and down, Baylor eventually at the buzzer. Jeremy Roach, the transfer from Duke, hit the 3, and a win that Baylor needed, a win that St. John's needed. But Baylor, after that loss earlier this year to Gonzaga, so a little college basketball to start us with it today, and a huge win in the Bahamas.
Baylor's defense is not what I would call good.
Nope.
I think it might get better, mostly because it has nowhere to go but up right now, given the talent that they have. But they have dudes who can score points, and they had a lot of good. Like VJ Edgecombe didn't even have a good game last night, and outside of a thrunk that he had, which he always has a throwdown on somebody in each game, even when he's not scoring. But Omier was great last night. Robert Wright was great last night. Jeremy Roach was clutch last night. They had 5 or 6 guys in double figures. They can score. Now, if they can just figure out that whole don't let the ball go in the rim for the other team thing, they're going to be formidable.
Yeah. St. John shot over 50%. Both teams shot really well from threes, and Baylor wins that game at the buzzer. Pitino wasn't happy after the game. One quick note from this. This is Rick Pitino following the double overtime loss to Baylor.
I felt at the end of the game that was highly unethical to go to the camera on a BS makeup and icing my free throw shooter. Highly unethical. And the referee should never let it happen.
So what happened is there was a play in which Scott Drew thought that there might have been an elbow. He went to the officials. They did go to the replay to check it, so there was a delay. But his player at the free throw line missed both of the free throws, not just the one you saw, that could have iced the game, just like both teams had others who missed free throws at critical times during that game that would have iced the game. In fact, after the game was over, Jeremy Roach said that I had to do something to make up for me missing free throws that would have sealed the game a couple of different times for Baylor.
Let me just say my opinion. Make the free throw.
Yeah, no, that's what I said.
Go ahead, Craig.
No, I was going to say, is it me or is that just a recurring issue with this team nearly every single season? If you say, like,
free
some
throws,
years defense is better than other years, some years the offense is really great or, not quite up to par, but I don't think there's any year where, like, man, they're really good at free throws. It's every year free throws are going to cost them a game. Free throws put them in trouble. So I don't know why that's such a nagging issue, but am I like making up things in my head, or does it seem like it's been about like 5 years in a row where it's like, man, free throws are really going to cost them at some point?
Yeah, no, I had a coach one time telling me when I did games for Tyler Junior College, he had a kid, a guard, that shot like 64% free throws, a point guard, but he was 95% in the last 5 minutes of a game. They started charting his free throws. Gerald Williams, a phenomenal player that led them to the national tournament. Now, yesterday it was G.J. Kinney. Today, Rett Lashley from SMU gets an extension, his contract extension. The school announcing this. Of course, he's had a great run, 13th right now in the college football playoff. On right now, a collision course to play for the ACC championship game. So he has an extension, SMU tying him up. There it is. And SMU, in fact, the press release from Chris Smith, I get their SMU emails. It said extended with an exclamation mark at the very top.
Yeah, I got to meet Chris when I was there. Great guy, by the way. And they hook us up with Coach Lashlee and players all the time. So we love SMU because they hook us up. But this is great news for them. I don't think he was going anywhere anyway. I think that Arkansas job might be a little bit enticing to him because he's from Arkansas, but it's not open. And we don't think that any big jobs are going to be open. And SMU might win the ACC this year in their first year. Why would he want to go anywhere else, especially considering that the alumni are as excited as they've been in 40 years about this football program and are throwing the sizable amount of money they have behind it to make sure that SMU falls behind no one when it comes to what you need to compete in modern college football.
They've done a really good job there in that tenure of his, and he's made SMU football exciting. He's made them noteworthy, and obviously he's got them in a position, as you said, to play for the ACC championship if they close this out right. So, yeah, they're on a upward trajectory, and he's the face of it right now. He's got a good young quarterback. He's got, talented players he's brought in via traditional recruiting, but also, like we've seen a lot of Miami guys from his ties there that have come over, like Brashard Smith, and made big impacts for them. So they've had a little bit of good in just about every area you could have, excitement levels, recruiting, donations, wins, all of that stuff. And, yeah, they're in a really good spot, so it makes sense to reward him. Especially as you see a lot of these but these announcements, which I think in some cases are kind of performative because it is like, where are you going, G.J. Kinney? You know, but it's like it's good that you earned that extension and you earned that money, so, good for you. But, yeah, Lashlee certainly deserved it. I do agree with Paul, though, of like, where are you going to go? So I don't think that's as much of a threat, but I don't think you just sign guys to contract extensions only if you're afraid you're going to lose them. You do it because you're rewarding them. And so I think that's what we've seen the last 2 days. More so than in years past when I think a lot of that would be like, let's cut this off and increase that buyout. I think that's less the case maybe this offseason because it doesn't appear as though there's going to be any huge shakeups, at least involving the guys that have been rewarded these last couple of days. I don't think the LSU job opens up and Rett Lashley is probably the first choice for that. Or definitely not G.J. Kinney, but I like both those guys. They've been on this show a lot. Good for them, and it's fun watching their team. So, hey, right on.
All right, Houston tomorrow will host Baylor tomorrow evening, and this is their flashback to the old Love You Blue of the Houston Oilers. John McClain was discussing this. Remember, the NFL tried to say, hey, no. Not every Houston fan likes these. I mean, not every fan likes everything, even if they're pretty cool. But they said, don't do this again. And here's Houston tomorrow hosting Baylor with the Love You Blue colors from back in the day.
Former AD Chris Pesman basically told the NFL to go screw.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that sentiment is kept through with the new administration because, look, I get the NFL wants to protect their trademark and blah, blah, blah. But look, between the owner who owns that team, the ownership group who owns the Oilers and that color, and the NFL, outside of 1 week a year, you don't wear them. What would be best for everybody involved is if you just, sold the name back to Cal McNair and let him change his very blandly named team to the Oilers, and let's make peace. Not going to happen, I know, but look, Houston, the NFL does not own Columbia Blue. They don't own Columbia Blue. This is about city pride. I'm for it. Stick it to the man. Houston Cougs.
Well, it's not Love You Blue, it's Houston Blue.
Houston Blue,
There's the difference. It's Houston Blue according to the school, so it's not Love You Blue.
Well, there's one way legally to get around it.
Hey, I don't see them getting sued right now by the NFL, so if it works, it works. And, it's Houston Blue according to the Cougars, and so they're also able to sell merchandise, I do believe, and that's a big part of when we saw those uniforms debuted last year was with the NFL threat. I don't know that they ever even attempted to follow through on selling. I don't know for sure, but I felt like that, at least in the moment we were talking about it, cut that off. But if you found a loophole and you can get Houston Blue past the copyrights and all that, then go sell hundreds of thousands of dollars in merchandise. Houston, go have at it. They've debuted it not only in football but also in volleyball as well this month. So they're making this look like it's going to be something we see more often than not, or we'll see somewhat regularly. So I like that they're leaning into it. I think it's a cool alternative. We see teams do all sorts of alternative stuff, but this one really resonates and I think makes a lot of sense for this program in particular. So I like the look. I like the nod. I like that they're not backing down from the NFL, and we'll see how well they play in them tomorrow, but I know they're going to look good.
Chris Pesman, who's the AD, was the AD before he was out. We're doing it. We've reviewed everything and come to the conclusion that we're going to proceed. This was after the NFL, of course, asked them to stop wearing those uniforms.
And you'll see a lot more Houston Blue tomorrow because I do believe they've got 20,000 rally towels in Houston Blue that we're going to be part of the promotions tomorrow for that game. So if you see those towels, then you heard it here. But, that's going to be a part of wearing those uniforms and just the whole festivities against Baylor.
Now we love showing uniforms, helmets. Some are better than others. Some are unbelievable, extraordinary. Utah will be wearing these uniforms, helmets. Man, that's a lot. And yet again, I love the color scheme. I love red anyway, red any kind of color. I think their jerseys are great. But here's the University of Utah, the Utes, and their helmet that they're unveiling.
Well, do you want a breakdown of them? Because I can give you a little bit of a breakdown on them. They are the Milana Lahaina helmets. That's the name that they're going with here. And you can tell by the logos, the graphics, that is Hawaiian tattoo art, those graphics that you see there. And they are hand-painted. There's actually some pictures of the artist who is in his workshop, and you see all the helmets laid out, and he's just meticulously going and putting the details on there. But they're going to wear those against Iowa State, and there's really beautiful homages in here. Obviously, you've got the Polynesian nod, the Hawaiian tattoos there. But the big thing about these is they are part of, and I got this via KSL, which does a great job out in Utah. I know we have some of their guys on from time to time, but they do a great job covering Utah and BYU. And these not only pay homage to their Polynesian culture roots, but also a reminder of the ongoing rebuilding efforts in Lahaina from the fires last year that you saw that wreaked havoc in Hawaii. And there's an outline actually somewhere on here, I don't know exactly where, of the iconic front street in Lahaina that burned down.
Yeah, that was where I honeymooned.
Okay, so you know all too well.
Yeah, I honeymooned there. Lahaina was, if you've ever been there in Maui, it was a really cool place. It goes back in time a little bit, because now when you go to things that are historic, just go to Bourbon Street. Bourbon Street still has a lot of historical things to it. But right next to a 275-year-old bar, there's also a crappy little chicken hut, right? Mm-hmm. And so it loses a little bit of its history to it. Lahaina was one of the last places in America where you could go where it felt like it could be if you just took cell phones out of people's hands, it's 1977 again. It's just like it was, and I hope they can build it back that way. And big ups to Utah for for supporting Lahaina.
Yeah, and the word malama means to take care of, nurture, preserve the land and its people. So malama Lahaina means to take care of Lahaina, nurture Lahaina. So yeah, there's the big tributes there, including the Lahaina Front Street that burned down, and big nod as well to the very deep Polynesian culture in the Utes program. So Armando Villarreal is the artist. He deserves some credit, obviously, for his work, and it was designed by Samoan tattoo artist Fred Frost. So I want to throw shout-outs because that's just super unique and super interesting, and also super kind, and just to have that in mind and to pay tribute to Hawaii and to all the people who suffered and the things that were burned down in the devastating fires. Beautiful. Well done, Utah. Awesome job. I think those are great, and I look forward to seeing those tomorrow.
There's a couple of things. Either you have it, and sometimes you can be taught it, but I think it's either you can sing or you can't, or you can draw or have artistic ability like that. Very rarely do you see somebody create themselves into an artist. There are classes that can help you, but man.
Well, it's cool to see. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's cool to see the picture of just all the helmets laid out, and him just kind of going across. But also, I only touched on the surface of the details in this. If you're actually more interested, go to KSL Sports, and they've got a write up on it. Or I'm sure UniWatch probably does at this point. But there's even more details, like all of the islands are represented from the Polynesian islands. It's there's all kinds of stuff. So that's very, very cool. So, yeah, shout out to Fred Frost and everybody else that I mentioned for creating those.
They play at home against Iowa State. That game is tomorrow night at 6:30 on Fox.
And for those that don't know, with Utah being in their first year in the league, they do this. This is a somewhat new tradition. They've been doing this since 2016. So they started that in 2016, the helmet theme, and they've done that, I guess, now the last 4 years. Didn't do it the COVID year, so the last every year since 2016 outside of the COVID year, they've had this type of helmets or nods to their culture. So, yeah, that's just another thing to learn about their new member of the Big 12 and some of the things. We got the Holy War first time a couple weeks ago, and there's just things that start to become new. So that's something you can pay attention to each year now.
We showed earlier
just to come on your artist thing. It's like being fast. You can be kind of fast and get a little faster, but if you're Michael Johnson, you were born fast. You were. And you get faster by
what
practice.
Separates you is there's a certain level of everybody or people who have that speed, but then to get to his level, it
takes there are some people that he was born with a baseline 4.7. He was never going to be slower in his life than 4.7, and then he worked at it to become the fastest dude in the
in the world. His record's held for years.
I know we're going to get to another one here. They also do. It's not just strictly Polynesian culture, but they've done nods to just every part of Utah culture. So you've seen different war helmets and Native American nod helmets. So I like that they've got a whole scope, one program we're about to get to here in just a second, I do believe.
And then, in fact, we showed you earlier this week what Army is unveiling or did unveil for their game against Navy in the second weekend of December. Here is the Navy helmet against Army. It's a helmet Ensign Jack Ernie would be proud of. This year's helmet is a blend of past and present, featuring the iconic VF-84 design with distinctive chevrons placed at the forefront, sides of the helmet, with a stripe running along the back. The white, while the helmet's white base coat represents VFA 103's current helmet, and there we are with what Navy has. Those two, the uniforms. I even if I maybe thought one, I'm not. If one of them I thought was a little gaudy, I wouldn't. It's Navy, it's Army, and they always seem to do this just so well.
I think that the designers, especially with some of the uniform changes we've seen, I know these are Under Armour for Navy, but I feel when I see Nike that they spent all their time working on Army uniforms or something, right? Because they're so intricate and detailed, and then you see some of the new uniforms, they're all the same set, they're just different colors. These are uniforms that time was taken, a whole year was taken to just interview people and read history books. And the amount of intricacy in these uniforms every year for both Army and Navy, hats off to their designers. And I think they hit it on both sides pretty perfectly pretty much every year. I don't ever get that's horrific looking or that's way too gaudy. I feel like it's just the right amount of like cool-s and like tradition, and I don't know. I think they're both awesome this year, but I think they're both awesome pretty much every year. But yeah, those Navy look really, really sharp. The Jolly Rogers on the Navy uniforms are awesome, and yeah, that's one of the best parts of the college football season is seeing what Navy and Army are going to throw down when they get ready to play each other uniform-wise.
The VFA 103, and some of you who have served, some of you who have been in, whether it's the Marines, the Army, the Navy, Air Force, or even maybe Navy SEALs, whatever it might be. Strike Fighter Squadron 103, nicknamed the Jolly Rogers, which was brought up in the chat room, an aviation unit of the United States Navy established in 1953. That was the year before my dad graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis.
Yeah, and we also have the Army uniforms. I know we showed them the other day, but just in case you missed that, just for comparison, these are in honor of the 101st Airborne, made extremely famous by
Band of Brothers.
Yeah, by Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
And you see the patch that says Bastogne, which I would say that's the best 2 episodes when they're in Bastogne. I think it's 2 episodes that it goes over. I think that's the only place that's like over the same place in 2 episodes as Bastogne.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I'm trying to think now.
Like
I know there's one main episode where they're in the woods.
It's
and
like an
going
episode
crazy.
and a half or whatever.
Yeah.
But and because
it's when Jimmy Fallon makes a random cameo. He pulls up to let
in
them
a Jeep, to like give them some stuff and then like helps them. Yeah, but they but the Bastogne part of the war there was so key because these dudes just sat in foxholes and for a while took on heavy artillery while waiting for us to be able to come back with our heavy artillery and take Bastogne back. And they sat there for months in the cold in these awful foxholes with only like a week off at a time. Like
I couldn't have done it, man.
It was
I couldn't have done it.
Was the
I'm not built for that.
I think if you ask any like Army historian, like if you had to rank the top 10, like that was a gutsy thing that they did. Easy Company and the 101st in those foxholes in Bastogne was really one of the most unbelievable things. So I love it when they do this every year and we get to learn a little bit more about history.
I know that you guys aren't always in the chat, and I'm on it occasionally, but watching those of you who serve go back and forth, Screaming Eagles, Paxton says slight lean to Navy, Rendezvous with Destiny, and other responses that are in the chat room about the Army and Navy and the traditions, of course, and the heroes from either one.
Well, in a sport where people get caught up on like the old tradition a lot of times, I like the tradition that is pretty present day of them outdoing each other with uniforms, but making them like mean something. It's not just like, what can we throw a stripe that means nothing on a helmet or a glossy coat of paint? Or it's like everything has a meaning to it, has a history to it. This is the best uniform battle in college sports that I'm aware of, at least. And just the history aspect of it, it's very cool. And I watch Band of Brothers probably once a year, off and on. Like I watch it probably in total once a year. So yeah, the Bastogne episode where they really focus on it is still good TV, still holds up really well like 25 years later. But yeah, those are awesome. Can't wait to watch that game tomorrow. And obviously there's some big on-the-field stakes. They won't just look cool, but Army's trying to stay unbeaten and ruin the college football playoff for some teams. So that's a big part of tomorrow as well.
The old Barn Cat, go K-State, they go to the Naval Academy, which, yes, in Annapolis, and they are midshipmen until they decide to go into the Navy or Marines. So thank you all for some of the history that we got from you, also from those of you who served. We do appreciate that. The Bronco Nagurski finalists for the best defensive players in America: Jahdae Barron, Texas; Abdul Carter, Penn State; Mason Graham, defensive tackle, Michigan; and Kyle Kennard, who I brought up yesterday, the edge rusher from South Carolina. Those are the 4 finalists, and that will eventually be a ballot that we all get, eventually vote, and move on to see who is going to be the one who is named this year's Nagurski Award winner.
Yeah, I don't know who I'm going to vote for. Like, that's a tough list.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty big year for Jahdae Barron. I mean, he's also a Jim Thorpe Award semifinalist, first Nagurski finalist in, I think, 10 years for Texas. The last one, if I read earlier correctly, was Malcolm Brown. So that's a pretty high honor just to be in the race and a finalist for one of those two awards and maybe a finalist for the other as well. We'll see. But, yeah, he's a really good player and was a Baylor commit at one point in time. That was a flip to Texas. So they've had their history of those, and those guys have been off and on as far as how they've panned out. But Jahdae Barron has certainly panned out very well for Texas.
Craig just used the word flip, so let's do this, Garrett, if you can. Let's go to the stories that happened with college quarterbacks or future college quarterbacks, including yesterday evening, Kevin Sperry, who's played at 3 different high schools in his career, most recently at Geyer High School in Denton. He had been committed to Brent Venables for a long time, has changed his mind. He now, last night, flipped to Florida State. He was the longest commit in the Brent Venables class of 25, and he was at Carl Albert for a year after being at Rock Hill High School in Texas for 2 years, and now at Geyer. Oklahoma loses a quarterback, and this has been like a rotating chairs or whatever you want to say, because Florida State lost their quarterback to Florida. LSU just lost theirs, of course, to Michigan. Colorado got Lewis, who was USC, who then got the one who was committed to A&M.
Yeah, long street there. I think a lot of this might show that FSU might be going after Kevin Johns, who used to work with Mike Norvell for their offensive coordinator job. I don't know that. But Kevin Sperry, he's a 3-star prospect on On3. He's a 4-star on Rivals. If you ask any FSU site, he's an 11-star prospect. I don't know. He's Peyton Manning and Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray all rolled into one, whatever, and he's a really good high school player. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, these things are to keep going on. I do know this: he's not going to start for Florida State. He might start for Florida State next year. God, it's been so bad. But
are you sure about that?
Yeah, I mean, he's probably not going to start for Florida State next year. They're going to get a portal player, but Mike Norvell needed to flip something and have some good news because most people have been decommitting. They're going to lose a big lineman. They've already lost a wide receiver that was friends with Tramble Jones. So,
Yeah, it's the merry-go-round is what I probably should have said. Garrett Ross is back. Garrett was so upset about it.
Can I, as an Oklahoma fan, say something?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Garrett.
We didn't want him anyways.
Yeah. That's what you get, right? I mean, that is what you get. So do they have anybody else committed to them right now, a quarterback, which is a position right now that they have to be wondering what in the what has happened to us after Dylan Gabriel left and Jackson Arnold had a bad year and then took his place. He didn't have a good year. Anybody they got locked in their class?
Not that so we'll see what happens, but I don't know. I hadn't been following super closely here of late, just been too busy with work and everything else to really get into the weeds on much recruiting class stuff, although that's starting to obviously matriculate a lot more as we get closer to National Signing Day. So I think maybe there's some blurbs here and there, but again, I haven't spent much time on the message boards for anybody really, so I don't know how much of a conversation there was. I'll just say it from my standpoint. I don't really think it matters all that much in the grand scheme of things with Brent Venables right now. It does, but it doesn't. For one, he's not playing soon at Oklahoma anyways, because you got to figure out your two guys that you've got right now. And Hawkins and Arnold about what's going to happen with those guys, what's going to happen with your offensive coordinator position. That's all stuff that's far more important right now than the freshman signee at quarterback who's not going to start right away. So, I'm sure it's being taken differently depending on where you look. But for me, as an Oklahoma fan who's not into the weeds on all of that, I think they've got quarterbacks on the team right now that are priority. And I think that the offensive coordinator position and the whole offensive identity trumps the high school signee. And especially in this era, this isn't sour grapes, but in this era, you're still going to transfer quarterback. It's not the biggest thing in the world. But, it's still a loss, so good flip for Florida State.
Before Garrett says anything, and because we forgot the Super Chat yesterday, retired stockbroker, whose house? Thank you very much, $2 Super Chat. As he will be fired up for that game
house
tomorrow night. The Cougars and the Baylor Bears in Houston. Garrett Ross was off. His son had a dentist appointment. I think he was kind of preemptively getting out of the way.
Boards.
Yeah,
he knew it was coming.
He and Mike Scarborough, who's going to join us at 4 something.
Sam's ready to go, but we do have to get Garrett's opinion about this.
Garrett. What was it like for you when you heard this was official?
It was a blow. It sucked, honestly. the more I thought about it, the madder I got, and not at Bryce Underwood himself. I do not blame him for taking that money. Hats off to you. Go be great at Michigan. You are a Michigan cat through and through. It's frustrating that this is where we're at, and that you can have people who run companies and own, I don't know, NFL teams come out and just buy players now away from you. It kind of sucks where we're at. But at the same time, I don't know bigger picture what this means for LSU, because I feel like they don't have the money to compete in it consistently in a pay-for-play era, whereas programs like Michigan and programs like Texas and A&M, who just have gobs of money, I think they could do that. I think Oklahoma and LSU, really all of our teams, are going to kind of find out what they are really made of in this new landscape. It's frustrating. I wish Bryce the best, but LSU is in a world of hurt right now trying to figure out where the hell they go from here.
That's saying quite a bit.